Hello everyone and welcome back to Gameweek 1 of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Championship, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, once again alongside Rick Shah for this fixture between Teesside Steel and Manchester City. Jeff Lewis, our central referee, gets the thumbs up from Isaac Murray and Jay Pixton and kicks off proceedings. How are you, Rickin?
I'm very well, thanks, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. Had a great day so far. Lots of fantastic football, lots of storylines and upsets, and it's exactly what we wanted coming into game week 1.
Yeah, if we go back to your podcast that you've done a few days ago with Rosie, there's a lot of storylines and predictions that seem to be throwing a spanner in the works.
And that's exactly how I like it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we had the pleasure of watching Teesside Steel's opener against Nottingham Forest, and it certainly didn't go all their own way. Whilst they come away with the 3 points and the commanding 3-1 scoreline, they were posed a lot of questions that Manchester City will be looking to replicate, but now it looks like they've gone with their tried and tested 4 within that first game. Thomas Met did fail the speed test, but he's obviously back in contention now as Oscar Mulgrew has an early sight at goal. Once this settles, we'll go through the squads. It's Oscar Mulgrew into Jamil Khan. Back out to the side, just doesn't get the connection, just nicks up on the top of his chair. And Oscar Spink going to try and break away. So the squad's in their entirety: Isaac Murray, Jamil Khan, Oscar Mulgrew and Thomas Met for Teesside Steel. And for Manchester City, they have Jay Pixton, Oscar Spink, James Simpson and Lucas Veza O'Brien.
This should be a good tight battle. Man City doing really well last season. I think they would have looked to build on that performances from last season.
Yeah, 14-point haul in 24-25, which I think was double the year prior. So if they can exhibit another level of development, as Thomas Met attacks that post, the whole ball had definitely gone over the line. So Thomas Met registers his first goal of the season. It was a nice assist from Oscar Mulgrew just to guide the ball into the path of the Teesside number 8.
I think Man City will be a bit disappointed from that.
Yeah, they would have wanted to ensure a little bit more defensive stability early on. That's where we saw Nottingham Forest have their success in frustrating Teesside Steel, but they're off the mark now, and you would suspect that they will look to inflict even further damage, with teams above them in Norwich and Nottinghamshire currently above them in the standings due to more favourable goal difference. I think Nottingham have put down the beacon early on, a 6-0 win and a 5-0 win in their opening 2. Shows exactly their intentions. Live on Court A, Hull and East Yorkshire take on West Bromwich Albion Baggy. Should there be any goals, I will bring you them here, but on this one, Teesside Steel, a goal to the good in 3.5 minutes.
Nice play between Khan and Thomas Met.
Yeah, the thing with Thomas Met, he always needs to be considerate of his chair angle and position. If he knows he's going to engage it with the front bumper, just needs to be a little bit more mirrored to that of the central player, being Jamil Khan in that instance. Oscar Spink down to James Simpson. I think when you consider their 14 points from last season, as Oscar Mulgrew's going to be faint to engage it. Strange decision. I don't think Thomas Met was necessarily singing off the same song sheet. But back to James Simpson, I think 9 or 10 of their points across the entirety of the season came via single James Simpson strike. So he is so important in those big moments, those fine margins. And they'll look at the teams around them, the likes of Nottingham Forest and GBG Saracens, who have struggled in their opening games, as ones that they just need to better across the 22 league games, as West Bromwich Albion Baggies sound as if they've gone a goal to the good. I think Sam Swingler on his National League debut is off the mark. But contact between Lucas Fezzer O'Brien and Oscar Mulgrew.
Jamil Khan is one inside kick in.
This is where Jamil Khan is so dangerous. There is a big channel with Thomas Met presenting on the alternate wing. Jamil Khan, probably one of the best dead ball specialists in the division, will probably find Thomas Met. Curse to the commentator. Mulgrew tries to engage it in the 180 to catch them defenders unaware. Lovely clean connection, but the gap had been closed by the defensive duo of Manchester City. It remains Teesside still 1, Manchester City 0.
I'd have liked them to go back across goal, because I think he would have drawn the 2 City players over, and there would have been a big space in the back, on the back post. Mulgrew to Khan.
Again, that needs readiness and preparation from Thomas Met, who didn't have the connection. Jamil Khan fires it into the box. This is the penultimate round of fixtures. Game week one. And then another jam-packed schedule tomorrow. We are truly back in the swing of things, as Jamil Khan hasn't necessarily got his distribution accuracy on the initial dead balls. It's Jay Pixton now trying to force his way out the box. Appeals from Jay Pixton towards the referee. It's a real battle here. Neither wants to yield, but Oscar Mulgrew has a good position. Jamil Khan, not quite sure what his intention was there. I know he had a glance towards Thomas Met on the left wing of Teesside still.
Looking at that chance, if I was Mulgrew, I'd have tried to have dribbled it in. There was a gap there.
Yeah, he managed to get in front of Jay Pixton. He's going to try and push it into his own 180, into Thomas Met. Just hasn't had the timing or connection in this game so far. Puts himself into some fantastic areas, but the attacks tend to fragment a little bit when they make their way over to him. That being said, he is the single goal scorer. Into Thomas Met.
Yet again, didn't get that connection that you were talking about earlier.
No, it's just the hesitation as how to engage it, whether it was the front bumper, whether it was the 180. You hesitate for a millisecond and the chance can bypass you. 180 surely of Oscar Mulgrew, cleared by Oscar Spink. This is relentless pressure. And it falls to Thomas Met at the back post. There's brilliant defence from Oscar Spink. It's better from Thomas Met, just being ready to capitalise. It fell to him. I don't think he was expecting it because it ricocheted off of Jay Pixton. But that was certainly more good defensive work than a lack of attacking threat. I think Thomas Met is being spoken to by Jeff Lewis. I think a free kick in favour of Manchester City. 10 minutes played. Teesside still a goal to the good. Oscar Spink down to James Simpson, just edging their way up the court. I don't think Isaac Murray has had a touch, which is a big shift from what we saw in that earlier game against Nottingham Forest.
Teesside winning the kick in there.
Oscar Mulgrew to take into the channel. Strange decision from Lucas Vezra O'Brien. Nice work from Jay Pixton. Just read the trajectory of that ball. Manchester City goal kick. Down as far as Isaac Murray, who gets his first real involvement 12 minutes in.
He's done well there, Spink. Winning this side of that kick in.
There's O'Brien out to James Simpson. Just wasn't necessarily ready to capitalise, but they're the chances that they have to take. The initial dead ball from Vezra O'Brien, the positioning of James Simpson, and now they're going to have to absorb some pressure. Heavy touch from Jamil Khan. Lets Oscar Spink come back and defend.
Khan and Spink are battling.
In their two matchups last season, Teesside Steel won both. Jamil Khan and Oscar Mulgrew helped them secure victory in February. And then latterly in May, a brace from Oscar Mulgrew and Owen Swift getting off the mark for his new club. So they have bragging rights, and they are certainly the more dominant attacking side in this one. This will be a good opportunity. Jamil Khan just giving the eyes to Oscar Mulgrew. I suspect he will be the intended target. So they don't communicate with words, but they do with kind of gestures and eye contact as they try to combine on the edge. They're just trying to force it through this Manchester City defence. I think because of the success that Teesside Steel had last season and how the narrative around them has changed so much from just league competitors to contenders, it sees their opposition set up far more differently. And now, as we saw with Forest, we're seeing with City, they're so defensively minded. They're not looking to create or attack. they're looking to just restrict the opportunities, and that's something that Teesside still have to adjust to. They need to kind of pick the lock now. Yes, they have the 1-goal advantage, but we're seeing Nottinghamshire take a storming advantage at the top of the standings with 11 goals from their 2 games.
Right, do you think part of that is to do with fear factor, thinking that we don't want to get hammered, so if we go defensive, we are limiting that those chances?
I think it works both ways. I think if you're Manchester City, you're never necessarily expecting any points from a match-up with the likes of Teesside Steel, and knowing how important goal difference is at the bottom as well as the top, that they'll just try to shut up shop almost. And if you was to offer them a 1-0 loss now, they would probably be very happy with it. So they'll have to, I don't think they're looking to get back into this game. That's the difference. I think they're happy to absorb pressure, and if chances arise, they will look to capitalise. But the story of Manchester City is more to not concede than to score their own. It's going to fall to Thomas Met, quickly engaged by Jay Pixton. Oscar Spink has to readjust offensively. It was an incredible initial ball from Jamil Khan. Nice dummy from Oscar Mulgrew. This is something we saw in that game against Nottingham Forest. Expanding the court as wide as possible. But again, it just fragments a little bit with Thomas Met. And that's a bit forced. Sometimes you want to see passes. It's a fine line between being forced and being overplayed. You need to find the sweet spot in the middle that they're not necessarily getting at the moment.
They've gone from defence to they're starting to build an attack.
They are. You can see them slowly getting confidence and their positioning. Lucas Vez-O'Brien needs to let that roll out. Sensible decision. Yeah, if you're looking now, committing players forward, that's a very strange decision from Lucas Vez-O'Brien. Just rushed it. I know it wasn't necessarily his intention, but just taking a second to regroup, readjust. Never borders onto the aspect of being time wasting, so he can just reset again. Looking to right the wrong now with the interception. He just makes a bit of connection with Isaac Murray, despite the appeals of 2-on-1 from the Manchester City coaches. I think the advantage was played through the contact primary. Again, it's those set pieces of Manchester City letting them down.
There seems to be a lot of similarities between this Teesside Steel team and the Muscle Warriors team from last year. You know, they're not necessarily scoring loads of goals, but they are getting the points on the board. I know we're only 1 game in or 2 games in.
Well, it was enough to see Muscle Warriors go on and be crowned champions, and if they can ensure that consistency across the season, we often say we want teams to ensure really positive goal differences, but ultimately it comes down to points, the point accumulation, and if they have a greater total and tally come season's end, then that's fine, whether they're 1-0 score lines, 2-1 score lines or other. Over to Oscar Mulgrew. It's just the decision making, I think, that's been a bit of a question for Teesside Steel. On that instance, it was an odd decision for Oscar Mulgrew to engage it with the front bumper. I think just being patient, going for the 180 would have generated more power and would have probably split the Manchester City defence a little bit more. So, whilst I don't disagree the similarities with Muscle Warriors, I don't think it's through the want of trying for Teesside Steel. Just hasn't necessarily clicked. But if they come away from 6 points from their opening 2 games with it not clicking, it's a far better position to be in than potentially dropping points and having to play catch up.
Yeah, 100%.
Oscar Spink into Lucas Vezzer-O'Brien. Very close to James Simpson there. Just need to be a bit more considerate of their positioning. I know it didn't amount to anything, but that is the half-time break. Teesside Steel, a goal to the good. They opened the scoring in the opening 2 or 3 minutes via Thomas Met, and since then they've been fairly dominant in an attacking sense, but Manchester City's defence has readjusted and remained resolute since, so hopefully they will be able to build on that in the second half. We will be back very shortly soon. Hello everyone and welcome back to the second half in this championship fixture between Teesside Steel and Manchester City. Jeff Lewis gets the thumbs up from both goalkeepers, sets his watch, and we are officially underway. Teesside Steel a goal to the good thanks to a Thomas Met strike in the opening 3 or 4 minutes. And since then, it's been fairly one-way traffic, but we have to commend the defensive effort of Manchester City, who have made a switch.
I'd have liked to have heard what the team talks were at half-time.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I don't think there's a great deal of expectation for Manchester City, but if they can be a little bit braver, it's just if they want to. Committing players forward will jeopardise their defensive stability, and that's something that they may not be willing to do. If you're Teesside Steel, I don't think you're overly happy with your performances in the league thus far. Yes, they've only played a game and a half, but some of the patterns and passing football and attacking play they had in the 24-25 season had everyone else looking up. And I think they will just hold themselves to a higher standard. So it's relative, of course.
Man City have made a sub at half-time.
Yeah, Sebastian Spink on.
Do you think there's going to be twin telepathy in that decision?
I've always called for them to feature alongside one another. We don't see it that often because Manchester City like to share the minutes among the squad, but if and when they do feature, I think there is that connection, there is that chemistry, and I think this is Manchester City's strongest starting four. Jay Pixton, Oscar Spink, Sebastian Spink and James Simpson. Just for reference, Teesside Steel unchanged that finished the first. Isaac Murray, Oscar Mogul, Jamil Khan and Thomas Met. It's almost disappointing from Jamil Khan. The goal was there to be struck at. He was patient, he drew Jay Pixton out, and his effort wide of the right-hand post. Certainly by the high standards he set, he should be doing better.
Yeah, he'd be very disappointed there. He saw the goal was gaping. But he's probably dusting off his cobwebs.
Just fires it off that left-hand post. That opportunity stems from the sharp, precise action of Thomas Met, something that was missing a little bit in that first 20. Already in the opening stages of the second, he looks like he's ready to capitalise. Swiped out of play by Jamil Khan.
It needs to be further over to the touchline, I think, to be able to play that ball into Mulgrew or find Thomas Met.
James Simpson just breaking up that passing lane to Thomas Met. Oscar Spink and Sebastian Spink very close to one another. That's better. Just when one drops off, another engages and vice versa. It's a nice pass that, but Oscar Spink needs to anticipate, needs to react quicker. He almost just stood still. Needed to be much wider on the court as well. Just hesitating and waiting for the ball to come to you. You just can't afford to do it in this division.
Yeah, it's all about the anticipation. You need to be quick at anticipating where the ball's going to be.
Thomas Met now just patiently pushing it against Oscar Spink. Sorry, Sebastian Spink and Jay Pixton. trying to create the angle, create the space. Jamil Khan's just hovering behind Oscar Spink. Oscar Mulgrew is the alternate side. Down the line.
Done well there to cut that ball out because it was just travelling further and further.
Yeah, I don't think he
field.
needed to engage it really. I think it would have eventually gone out. Good follow-up effort from Oscar Spink into Oscar Mulgrew. And that's a gap. It's going to trickle from one end to the court to the other, and they find it. An equaliser out of nowhere. Incredible stuff from Manchester City. Just slotted between Isaac Murray. James Simpson hesitated to engage, and in doing so, Manchester City are straight back into this.
We saw this earlier today, Ryan, against Nottingham Forest. There's absolutely no need for the keeper to push up that far, especially when you're only 1-0 up. You know, you want to protect that 1-0 lead, especially when you haven't necessarily been playing particularly well.
It's not that they haven't been playing particularly well, I just think they've been so defensively minded, they haven't looked to attack. But it shows that if and when they ask questions of Teesside still, as was the case, yes, with Nottingham Forest, Teesside still look vulnerable, and that's a real change from last season. We said at the half-time break that Teesside still won't be overly happy with their level of performance, and that will certainly be the case now, as Manchester City have just completely settled since that opening goal, and in this second they look really bright. We said about the connection of the Spinks playing together, and that goal stemmed from their connection and chemistry.
I think if you're Manchester City, you're almost 75% into the game. 1-1. You would have taken that at the start of the match.
The question now is, as Sebastian Spink has changed this game for Manchester City, just clean connections which not only relieve pressure on his defence but ask questions of the Teesside Steel defence. The question for Manchester City now is, do they maintain this style of play which comes with elements of vulnerabilities in defence because of the committing players forward, or do they look to just ensure their defensive shape and try and get a point?
If it was me, I would be looking to just try and get a point out of this.
You understand that comes with them having to absorb a lot of pressure and a lot of chances because they're sitting back, as James Simpson now hasn't quite got the connection, and unfortunately for them, James Simpson not quick enough in vacating the space. They're going for this, Rickin.
Yeah, you don't blame them. They've got chances there. You know, if the option's there, why not go for it?
Swing and a miss from Thomas Met. But this, a brilliant performance, and exactly as we saw in that earlier game, Rickin, they're relieving Isaac Murray of that goalkeeper jersey. They've brought Charlie Connolly on to sit as the most defensive. It needed this change earlier for them to force the momentum in their favour, and I wonder whether they can replicate it here.
It's going to be a very interesting last 10 minutes of this game.
I don't mind that from Oscar Spink. The longer it remains up this end, the more time it spends away from Jay Pixton in the City goal.
I can sense that there's going to be fireworks something's going to happen.
The thing is, because Teesside Steel was so good and so many people are regarding them as title contenders, they've almost got a target on their back now, something that's never necessarily been the case. And they have to unpick the stubborn defences. That looked as if it came off the back of Oscar Mulgrew to certainly where we're sitting. It definitely did, having watched it back, so they're fortunate to come away with that kick in. But either way, Oscar Spink looking to maintain an attack. Just a little bit of miscommunication with James Simpson as to who was going to engage it, who was going to take what position. And they're slightly disorganised now as Oscar Spink is trying to get back in to support the defence.
I thought there was a 2-on-1 there. Maybe Mulgrew backed off.
They're just completely frustrating Teesside Steel. Isaac Murray down to Oscar Mulgrew, cushioned by Jay Pixton as Jamil Khan engages it in the 180, but the theme of Teesside Steel in the 25-26 championship season is one of missed timing and connection.
They need to get these draws out their system. Like that draws last season cost them automatic promotion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to highlight that. Obviously, they went on that 19-game unbeaten run. With that, without context, you would say that were they champions? Were they automatic promotion contenders? Sadly not, because of that draw column and the amount of points dropped. I think they had 8 draws in their 22 league games, which was significantly more than every other team in the division.
Yeah, if you take 4 or 5 of those draws and convert them into wins, that's an extra 10 points.
Massively. So this is a really good opportunity. And they'll almost say it doesn't need to be pretty, but it needs to be effective. And if they come away with 3 points, irrelevant of the performance, they will be somewhat happy. Jamil Khan opts to take indirect, has to go via another chair through the goal. Nicely left from Jay Pixton just to react, and any hesitation from him, it could easily have just fired off his chair.
He very clever there.
He's a brilliant player, Jay Pixton. Doesn't get the credit he deserves, playing at the root of that base, a base that typically absorbs so much pressure and momentum from the opposition attack. But he's absolutely central to how they perform, how they operate. They'll always typically switch and change their outfield free, but Jay Pixton tends to play every second of every game, and you can see why. He's going to be tested here as it goes to Jamil Khan, over to Oscar Mulgrew, saved by Jay Pixton. Just out of ideas. Oscar Spink up the court, sensible. He's going to call Charlie Connolly into a defensive save. It's a big round of applause from the Manchester City coaches.
And rightly so, converting defence into attack with one kick of the ball.
2-on-1 advantage played for Manchester City. Good officiating from Jeff Lewis. And now we saw an indirect free kick one end. Can Manchester City do the unthinkable and capitalise the other? It's going to be Sebastian Spink to take. Jay Pixton all the way up to just communicate with those attacking players.
Is this a chance that they're going to need?
It's a strange setup. It goes into the 180 of James Simpson, doesn't necessarily have the power, and James Simpson needs to be quick in vacating the space. This is what Oscar Spink needs to do now, just lock it up in this top corner, wind that clock down. There's just under 6 minutes to go. They just look a little bit dejected, a little bit out of ideas. Teesside still. They don't have that energy that they had last season. You wonder whether the weight of expectation is playing into their performances. For the first time pretty much in the club's history, they are expected to win, they're expected to excel, and that can be a real daunting task if you've kind of gone under the radar for so long.
That expectation does come with a lot of pressure, and sometimes it's not nice.
James Simpson just pushes it into Charlie Connolly. Oscar Spink's been brilliant in this second half, shifted to a more wide role, but so busy and involved in breaking up the passing lanes. Just forces it into Jamil Khan. Again, sensible. It's a young side, this Manchester City squad.
We have to appreciate this. It's 3.5 minutes to go, Ryan, and it's 1-1.
You could almost say that they've been the better in the second half. In terms of their organisation, they have to be careful of Jamil Khan. He's ready to capitalise into the 180. Oh, just wide of the left-hand post. It's a fantastic opportunity. But once again, we have to go back to what we said at the start of the second. The connection, the timing, the chemistry of Oscar and Sebastian Spink has completely changed this game for Manchester City. And they should almost be a goal up.
Yeah, we did say this just after half-time, whether the two brothers could work well together, and it's been proven that this is their best team.
Out to James Simpson. He's got an opportunity, just doesn't quite get the timing and/or connection. Pick off from Seb Spink. They've just been pulled out of their shape a little bit. But Jamil Khan can't locate Isaac Murray. And we are fast approaching the conclusion of this game. 2.5 minutes to go. Manchester City more than worthy of a point, as it's just pushed into the path of James Simpson, but the man in question too close to Oscar Spink. Incredible stuff, and it goes back to what we've said time and time again. This division, anyone can beat anyone. Truly believe that. I don't think that's a statement you can apply to the Premiership. I don't think you could have really applied it to the Championship last season, because there was a big discrepancy with the top and the bottom. But this season, what we've seen in Gameweek 1 so far has proved that to be absolutely the case, as Oscar Spink just trying to read Isaac Murray. Final minute, Rickin, player of the match. Tough ask.
I'm going to give it to Sebastian Spink. I think since he's come on at half-time, he's just changed the game. He scored the equaliser, and he should have had a second late on. So yeah, Sebastian Spink for me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. If it wasn't Sebastian Spink, for me it would be Oscar Spink. It's a real coin toss as to who has been more influential for this potential result. They're now just 30 seconds plus additional time away from what will be a historic point. It goes into the path of Isaac Murray, but just goes out of his path into Oscar Mulgrew. This would be so unfortunate if they go on to concede this late. Jamil Khan looking for the space at that near post. Now just 10 seconds away. Surely the last opportunity for Teesside Steel to snatch 3 points out of almost nowhere. Pushed into Oscar Mulgrew's path. Isaac Murray across the box. The gap nearly presented itself, and now a potential break on for James Simpson. Swipes it goal bound, but just wide of the post. End-to-end stuff. A big smile on the face of James Simpson, almost trying to get a little bit greedy.
You're going to hear a loud cheer at the end of this game, Ryan.
This has been an incredible fixture. We loved the Teesside Steel Forest game earlier today, and this has surpassed it in terms of the drama and the upset. And Oscar Spink, such good play.
He's done well there. Every second that goes down.
Full time on court A. Baggies 3-0 victors over Hull and East Yorkshire. Here we are into additional time. A minute has been played. Surely Teesside still can't find a winner. Glance at the watch from Jeff Lewis. The whistle is in his mouth, and he blows the whistle for full time. Teesside Steel 1, Manchester City 1. An incredible fixture, Rickin.
That was probably one of the best games of football that I've ever seen in the Championship over the last 2 seasons. You wouldn't have been able to call that at the start of the game. You would have thought Teesside Steel would have, put 3 or 4 past the Man City side. No disrespect to them, but you can see that they've improved significantly over the summer, and well-deserved draw. Maybe they should have even won it.
I don't disagree. I think they will take so much confidence from that performance. A team that many are considering to be title contenders. It was a narrow defeat to Manchester United earlier today. They followed that up with an incredible point against Teesside Steel. Tomorrow, tough games against Leeds Dynamos and Altrincham. But if they play like that, I have no doubt they will be more than comfortable in this division across the 22 league games. Thank you to all that have tuned in, to myself and Rickin. Next up on Court B, we have Norwich City against Altrincham.